Hey everyone, I'm Arnold Tsang from the Overwatch team. I'm the character art director, and today I'm going to teach you how to draw Tracer. With Tracer, one of the trickiest things to draw is her hair. So I'm going to break it down step by step, and so you guys can follow along. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing that we like to do when we draw faces, and those of you who have done drawing before will know this, we start with a circle. And I'm going to be drawing Tracer from the front today. Just a little bit easier to follow along. So there's your circle, and next we're going to draw a line across the middle, and I like to do it just below the middle, and we're going to draw a horizontal line to cut right across, and that is going to be our eye line. And the same from top to bottom, we draw a line that goes straight down the middle. And for this one, I like to go past the bottom of that circle to mark where our chin is going to be. And don't worry about the exact position, because we can eyeball it later on when we're actually drawing the jaw. Next, we're going to put in some landmarks for the eyes. So the eyes are usually like the middle of the eye might be halfway between the middle of our circle and the outside edge. So we're just going to mark that right there. Maybe sometimes I like to bring it in just a little bit closer to the middle. And don't worry about what these lines look like right now. They're just going to be they're just guides for our actual lines later on. For the nose, I like to put a mark right around the middle between the midpoint line of the circle and the bottom edge, and maybe just slightly under the middle. I like to put it right under the middle. And then for the mouth, it's just above that bottom edge of the circle. So those are the main facial features that we're going to be working with. And the last structural line we're going to do is the jawline. So this one's going to be a little bit tricky, and everybody has a different style of drawing, and every character has a different jawline. And the reason why it's tricky is because sometimes for humans, because we have such an acute sense of human faces, so we can tell each other apart, we can pick up just the slightest difference in angles and spacing and shape for a jaw. But don't worry, everybody has their own style of drawing, so even if it's a little bit off, it will be fine. So what I like to do is start at that top or at that middle point at the side of the circle and bring a line that kind of goes slightly angled inward down, and that ends around where we put our mouth marker, at which point we turn that line in a soft corner, there we go, toward the chin. And again, depending on how you draw the jaw, like if you want to do a smaller, wider one, you might get a more kind of cute, stylized, super deformed face. Today, I'm going to draw Tracer a little bit stylized, so not exactly how she looks like in the game, but how I like to sketch her out. She has like slightly bigger eyes, a little bit more like a anime or manga style, if you will. So there is our jawline, and don't worry about the exact positioning. This is still going to be a guideline. Later on, we're going to draw with a black line the actual edge of her face. So that is going to be it for now for the structural drawing, and we're going to switch to our black line now, or pen, and we're going to start with the eye. I like to start with the eye because it's one of the most interesting parts of the face. And I like to start, if you imagine the marker being the middle of your eye, I want to do the eyelid just outside that. I start with a 45-degree line coming from inside out and up for the eyelid, and then cut across with a slightly curved horizontal line, and then before coming back down. That's our upper eyelid. And then, like I said earlier, we're going to do slightly a more stylized version of Tracer with slightly bigger eyes. So I'm going to do like a circle, or I guess it's kind of a slight oval for her iris. Her iris is your colored part of your eye. And then The same on the other side. At 45. We've got a slightly curved line that cuts across for the upper eyelid, and then a nice big ovoid shape for the iris. And then what I like to do as well is just a slight suggestion of the lower eyelid as well. There we go. Now, and one more thing you might want to add is just a little bit of that triangular pop to the edge of the eyelashes to give her that little bit of that lift of mascara. And maybe a couple of light lines above the eyelid just to show depth. There we go. Those are the eyes, and we're going to come back to the eyes a little bit later to add some more detail, but we're going to leave it at that for now. Next is the nose. So for the nose, similar to the jawline, you know, a slight difference to a nose can change a face dramatically. So I like to keep it simple with a sketch like this. What I like to do is just a little bit of a shadow on one side and the nostril on the other side. That gives it a little bit less of a flat look, just a little bit of dimension. Again, it's like a manga style thing, and sometimes, you know, you can do a light suggestion of that middle of the nose bridge. You don't have to. And then on the mouth, we've been focusing on symmetry so far, but for the mouth, because Tracer is such an upbeat, positive character, I always like to give her that smirk. And for that, you want just a little bit of asymmetry in there. Maybe one side's a little higher than the other. I also like to just put a little bit of a shadow under the bottom lip and a little bit of a line indicating the top of the top lip. All right. So that is the features. And then we also want to go back and do the eyebrows as well. So the eyebrows, we want to start on the inside, just above and past the corner of the eyelid, and do a really, really shallow angle. Tracer's got that determined look, so we don't want to start too high, and then come back down and sharpen that tip around the outside edge of that iris. Kind of see a line right there. Do the same on the other side. Keep the inside part of the eyebrow thicker, and the outside part that bends down pointier. Just the eyebrow a little bit of depth there. And she looks a little creepy now with those red eyes, but we're going to erase those lines later. All right, so next we're going to do the hair. So before we do the hair, we're going to put one more construction line or construction marker. This time we're going to do it just if we look at the right side eye and draw a line straight up past the top of the head, and maybe just move it just, okay, you know what? I'm going to say that we start on the outside edge of the iris and go straight up past that edge of the circle and right about there. That's going to be the marker for the origin of her hair. If you notice, you know, everybody's hair kind of has a way that it flows, and it all comes from an origin. Some people have two, some people have multiple ones. For Tracer, it kind of comes from the top right here. So we're going to use that, and we're going to draw the first line of hair. And for this one, we want to draw a nicely, slightly curved line that cuts across down the left side here, and it's going to overlap a little bit of her face, of her eyebrow and her eye. So we want to start just above that marker we made and cut across it. Don't worry if it takes a couple shots. Make sure you eyeball it, and then cut across just past that circle. And that is going to be the first line. And If you imagine these pieces of hair being like slices of pizza, they're all kind of going to be very triangular. This first piece, for the other side of our pizza, we're going to find a mark that's around the middle of the head, right above there, maybe slightly to the left of the middle. And then we're going to draw another slightly curved line, similar to our last one, that just connects with our first one, like that. And then to finish off our pizza slice, we're just going to close it off with a slightly curved line to connect the two upper corners. And there we go. We have our first piece of hair or tracer. And next, we're going to do the second piece. So imagine the origin dot is where you're going to want to start the next line. And then we're going to do a nice big C curve. A C curve is like a curve that curves in one direction. We're also going to do S curves later, and that's a line that curves in two directions. So this piece is going to be a C curve, and it's going to come from the origin point. We don't want to start right at the origin because the other piece of hair is in the way. We're going to start right above it. Imagine the line kind of imaginarily comes up here. I'm going to start around there and swoop all the way down. Swoop all the way down. And sometimes, it's helpful to kind of like draw a curve slowly, piece by piece if you want, to help you get just the angle that you want. And then we're going to tuck it behind that first piece of hair, like that. All right. And then from there, we're going to draw our next piece. Again, imaginary line that starts from that origin and kind of goes just above this last piece of hair we did. And this is going to be an S curve. So it's going to start up and then swoop out to a tip. I'm going to start again here, and what might be helpful is if you're using the construction lines to draw a line that comes straight up from that origin to just about there. It's going to be the furthest reaching point of her head, and that's just a guide for later. So one way to do it, if you're right-handed, sometimes drawing from left to right is more natural. So I'm going to try that. Oops. Bring that in there, and then that's going to be the bottom of the hair, and then swoop an S curve up like this, and tuck it around, towards your origin. So that's going to be the next piece of hair. Next, we're going to have a piece of hair that's very similar to the last one, but the starting point will be about, let's say about here. So again, I'm going to try going from left to right, do almost like a 45-degree curved line down like this, and then an S curve that comes across almost horizontally. Ooh. And over. Almost have 3 curved lines over here. All right, and then next, we're gonna have our tallest piece of hair, and that's gonna start at an apex of probably like, that other, the left side eye. If you drew the line straight up, that's about where we want that tip of hair to be. Maybe right there. So we'll draw a line that comes maybe around here, swooping down this way. It's almost straight at this point, but curves inward. And then another very, very shallow S curve. This one's gonna come back around over the other lines again. So that is going to be the last piece of our hair on the left side. And to finish it off, all we got to do is, you'll see where that first piece of hair intersects the circle right here. We're going to draw a line that connects that point and comes out to the side of the face. So I'm just going to start here and cut across like that. And then I'm going to draw another one from that origin dot across out of her face, out past her head. This is going to be the furthest point on the other side of her head. And then come back in making sure that we give it enough mass to balance the other side of the hair. And one thing I noticed is I think we can get this to be a little bit longer on this side. Yeah, there we go. A little more horizontal. There we go. All right. Okay. So lastly, to finish Tracer's hair off, she just has a little tuft of hair that kind of comes out the side there. There we go. And there you have it. That's Tracer's hair. Okay, so around now is where we erase the guidelines. So this time around, I forgot to put it on a different layer, so I'm just gonna go in there and strategically, not strategically, but surgically erase some of these red lines. If you're following along with pencil and pen, you can kind of just lightly with your eraser erase those pencil lines, leaving your pen lines. Oh, you know what? Let's leave the jawline, because we're going to do that first before we erase those completely. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're going to leave the jaw for now because we're going to draw that in. And to finish off the jaw, I usually draw my jaw guideline a little too wide, so I'm just going to follow it along here, but bring it in a little bit to be slightly more narrow. There we go. Now I'm going to erase. The red line there. Touch it up the way that you want. Again, drawing the jawline can be tricky sometimes. One of the trickiest parts is symmetry. I know I always get my symmetry off. My symmetry's always off. Okay, there we go. Yeah, sort of some of that red in there. But that just gives it more character. All right, so another thing you can erase while you're holding your eraser is, well, I guess, you know, if you did this with pen, it wouldn't happen, but you can use white or erase, if you're following with pencil, the line, the eyebrow and the eye that is overlapped by that front hairpiece. Gives you a little bit of depth and overlap. Okay, so you'll notice that she's missing ears. So for the ears, when you draw ears, I like to start at the top eyelid and then kind of end right before the nose, the point of the nose. But because this side is covered up with the hair, all we need to do is a little bit of that. On the other side, you'll kind of see what I mean when you start around the top of the eye, come out and bring it back in before the nose. And I like to draw this little guy here, just for a little bit of definition, like an S shape almost. And then from there, we want to add her earring. So you'll notice today I'm actually drawing Tracer from Overwatch 2. And if you pay close attention, her earring is a little bit different. It's almost like this half hexagon C shape that clips just to the top of her left ear, right there. And another thing that's different with Tracer from Overwatch 2 are her goggles. But before we jump into that, I'm just gonna shade her eye in a little bit here. Tracer's got brown eyes, so it's good to go in with a little bit of a darker tone. I'm not going to go completely dark because I want to save the darkest value for the pupil here so that can come out. And the one thing I like to do is just shade the top of the iris to set those eyes in there and give it some depth. And to finish the eye, to bring it to life, Sometimes I like to do like a 4 o'clock highlight. The iris, maybe a little bit of 730 on the other side. However you like it. Yeah, I've got a little bit dark on the iris, so yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, last but not least, the goggles. So I'm gonna switch to an orange pencil here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And also it kind of gives her, her goggles that transparent look. And we're gonna start the midpoint between the middle of the eye and the nose down here. And we're gonna do an upside down U shape with a slightly, almost like a rounded corner, like that. And then it kind of rounds below the eye, but just above the nose. We don't want to go too far down. And it's the same on both sides. And then for the top, it's slightly less steep of a curve. More like that. And then you want to go up and come down from the same area where your eyebrow comes down. That is the goggle shape for Tracer. And you'll notice for Overwatch 2, the goggles don't have that white border, which is sometimes tricky to draw because then you have to fit 2 lines over her face instead of 1. So that's one thing I really like about Overwatch 2 Tracer design, is it's easier to draw her goggles. She has these connecting pieces for her nose and the side of her cheek. The middle one is around this shape, which is pretty much the same shape that we drew on the goggles. And on the outside, we have these like telephone shapes, half telephone shapes. So if you took a telephone, cut it in half and just grab the bottom part and put it right about here. That's another one of the stabilizing pieces for Tracer's goggles. Gotta stay on her face somehow. You could shade those in because they're dark gray. All right, and the final touch I'm gonna do here is just give her some light freckling. One of Tracer's key signature features. Yeah. Define the eye just a little bit more here. But that's pretty much it, guys. All right, there you have it. That's Tracer from Overwatch 2. Thanks for tuning into BlizzConline. Definitely make sure you check out some of the other artists from the Overwatch team. We have Q and Morton and Andrew showing you how to draw different Overwatch characters. So check them out, and thank you for tuning into BlizzConline.